If you've learned anything from my videos, it's that I love bosses of any game. And that's why most of my favorite games will have amazing bosses. It's just a part of what I love in games. Now, of course, there are exceptions to it, and some games I even want to make videos on that aren't about the bosses, but I feel like the bosses for me are the standout moments of games. But to be honest, one issue I've had with a lot of 2D games in general is that their bosses don't often cut it compared to 3D bosses. 3D bosses for me have the benefit of this more space. You can go anywhere. You can go up, down, 360 motion, 180 motion. That's a lot more than the up, down, left and right you get off a 2D game. And that's something that 3D bosses often just have over them. But 2D bosses can have their own special things that make them stand out. First is they can require far more precise controls than 3D bosses. And due to their 4 motions, they can also use the level and the area around you far better without issues such as camera or something like that. And if there's one boss type in particular that benefits from 2D combat in that way, it is gank bosses. You will rarely get a great gank boss in a 3D game, while 2D games, they're far more common. But even though 2D combat often is inferior to 3D, one game I think has actually managed to have fantastic combat even in the second dimension is Nine Souls. For me, in combat, there are 3 main defensive ways of gameplay. There is deflects, such as Sekiro, jumping and positioning, which I just say together, such as in Elden Ring, Armored Core, and obviously dodging, which is Dark Souls, things like that. They all have their own separate benefits, and I personally think the best combats is when they're mixed together. And in my opinion, no game I've played has managed to mix evasion and parries as well as Nine Souls has. And this really helped the combat stand out and be fantastic, but it was still a 2D game. And as I played and as I fought every fight till that point, as I went from Yan Lao to Ji Quan, which was an amazing fight, I still couldn't say that he had the amazing feeling that, say, Souls bosses gave me, because he was still a 2D fight and they still suffered the issues that 2D bosses had. But there was one boss that completely changed this, as they managed to use what makes 2D bosses amazing to come out as a fantastic fight. And that boss is Lady Ethereal. But before I get to the boss, in my opinion, it's very important to talk about something that it also does, which is the presentation, because that is what makes this fight instantly stand out, even better than some of the best AAA bosses you'll see, such as Midra, is how they're presented. As for a basic rundown of the story of what happens so far, you got smacked by someone you learn is Aigon. That's all you know, and that he wants revenge against her and the other 9 souls. So, you go on your revenge story. That's what you believe it is, and that's what it points towards being, at least from my perspective so far. So, you go for your first soul. That is Kawafu. He is actually an extremely lovable oaf who just wants to do what's best, even when he sometimes questions what he's doing. And you actually recruit him, you don't kill him. As you go to the next one, you go to Gumang. She is a pretty messed up individual, but she seems to want to do what's best for her people. She is willing to do what she thinks is wrong for the overall good. So she's still someone who you could say has some complexity. And as you go to your next one, being Yan Lao, you see someone who has wisdom, yet also selfishness and obsession with the old instead of improving the new. Unlike the other two, he is doing something wrong, but he at least believes this is for the greater good. And this is all goes to the ultimate climax when you meet the most depraved so far, being Jiquan, a disgusting individual. You want to do nothing but impale on his blade. No real likable traits, unlike the others. He is truly a depraved person. And when you slay him, unlike with the others, there's no level of pity you feel for him, even when you see his backstory, because he is the ultimate privileged scumbag from your perspective. And this is what I thought the story was going for. As you go further and further, you get more and more depraved. So, when you see your next soul, you, as well as Yi even, seem to be ready for an even more depraved individual than Jiquan. And that all changes as you enter the butterfly dimension? Like what? You enter this place, and unlike the rest, which have become more and more depraved and gross, you see this beautiful looking area, and you see. Bam! Okay, ignoring that, you actually see someone who seems extremely, non-manipulatively friendly to Yi. And even Yi seems to almost soften up to them, not instantly wanting to murder them as you meet Lady Ethereal. Someone who, unlike any of the other figures, is relaxed, as well as not condescending towards you, and in a far more beautiful area with originally no hints of horror. As you explore it, even going through, you see this beautiful pink fields, one of the most stunning areas I've seen in any games, which is extremely unfitting after some of the things you'll see. But as you explore more and more of this place, you'll start to see hints of the true horror of the area, as you just see dark images, something staring at you, and not shaming of you, but shaming of the Lady Ethereal themselves in this area, which makes it almost creepier that it stays beautiful the whole time. And as you go deeper and deeper into this rabbit hole, you'll see the true disgustingness of this area. But this isn't a reveal that you might even expect, like I was. This person is not evil, actually. The disgustingness is their own hatred of themselves and what they've been forced to do, and how they, unlike any other villain, want you to kill them. And that's when you wake up to see what's actually happening. As when you wake up, you don't see a villain or her sitting or her sleeping. You see a brain and a spine hooked up, forced to continue a job she hates herself for, forced to live in a living hell and torment against her own will. And you are now, unlike any other fight, for me at least, I wasn't doing this because I needed to kill her. I did this because I didn't want this person to suffer eternally for nothing but the use that she provides to the true villain. And that's when you yourself, Yi, choose to go in to try and help her. But you can't do that peacefully. You need to slay them. And as phase 1 begins, you see a pretty gross looking arena covered in corpses and a head with a slit through it. This is not the mind of someone stable, yet it still has this semi-beautiful feeling to it with the butterflies and the water going by, even if obviously the background is a bit disturbing because you're not fighting someone who's mentally well. But to be honest, phase 1 is very easy. She has barely any health, takes like 6 combos from me with no damage upgrades at all to easily clear it. Her moves also nearly all leave massive openings, and only one move goes above 1 attack. Still fun enough because it's fun to just be fast, but it's very calm. It's not extremely challenging or anything, it's just a good intro to her moves, which is what it's supposed to be. But then, the real fight begins. As the arena gets even more chaotic, her head splits even more and gets disturbing to look at, and she splits into 3 forms, which for me feels like her sanity splitting even more, just like her head. And not just is this amazing symbolically for what it means for the character, it's also an amazing phase mechanically, as it mixes both an insane idea with basically near unlimited mix-ups on her moveset, as well as just a great pacing and an amazing idea for a gank fight. Because the way it works is that unlike any other fight I've seen, her clones, you can't hit them, and you can't tell, bar one attack, which one is her and which is a clone. So you need to attack every single one of them and be on the offense and get ready to, when you get her, you need to be ready to stun her before the next attack comes, or ready to respond to that attack. But sometimes you actually need to respond to the attack before you stun her, because it's going to come faster than you will, and you will get hit and ruin your attack. And it's all about these micromanaging of all of her mechanics, as well as just this amazing mix-up filled moveset in her clones, with only real 2 variations in how you can have either land, which is unlimited mix-ups of certain attacks, or air, which is unlimited mix-ups of other attacks, leading to one of the most fun phases I've ever done for a 2D boss, if not the most fun phase I've done for a 2D boss. And this phase is tough, because she can combo you to death in seconds. So you need to always be on your toes. There's never a safe point for you because of how she works. It's a bit like the Sisters of Battle from Hollow Knight. Slightly slower, to be fair, but unlike them, it's constant. You never ever get it where it's just her attacking. It's always swapping between each clone. Where will the clones spawn? What attack will they do? You need to always be ready to react for what they're doing, because each attack requires different forms of evasion, whether the double parry or a single parry, a jumping parry, jumping between the balls, dashing to the side. Each and every attack in this phase is fast and intense, and it just leads to an amazing flow. And the music in the background, this beautiful sounding music, but overshadowed by almost these screams of a song coming from the boss. And it really perfectly encapsulates this character, this beautiful person who's done so much good, but has been ruined by what she's been forced to do. She's a broken person. This is not someone who's willingly or wanted to do what they've done, and they despise themselves for it. And that is when you beat phase 2. And I almost thought it was over, but I also was like, is phase 1 really a phase when it's more just a way to show you the moves that she will use in phase 2? And that shows when phase 3 starts and they fully break. The arena goes insane. She splits even more into a near infinite number of clones and just laughs. It's not anyone in pain or anything. They are completely gone at this point. The Lady Ethereal that you talked to earlier is no longer here. And this leads to phase 3, which is another phase that is just amazing mechanically. As similar to phase 2, she can do basically any combo, any attacks, even including land or air, mid-combo I'm pretty sure. But to make up for that, you don't have her attacking you in the middle of it. She will come and you will know which is her. So it's not like phase 2, which is about finding and attacking each and every one the most efficient way possible. It's about waiting for her to come. It is an endurance battle. Her against you. And you will die a lot of times probably, because this phase is tough and it is after an already tough phase. And unlike a lot of bosses, where I have the issue where phase 1 and 2 can often just be a lesser form of the next phase, phase 3 is a completely unique phase. So not just are you still going to struggle because it's not just better phase 2, you're also going to struggle because it's after a unique and very challenging phase. And that leads to a lot of death. And it took me a lot of runs to get an attempt where I had good enough stats to reach it in like heals and stuff, let alone survive it itself, which was already a very tough phase where you could also get comboed to death. But after enduring one of the hardest parts of the game, or any 2D boss I've seen, I finally beat them with a very close run as well. But the feeling of beating them was the mix of insane satisfaction, but also I wasn't happy it was over. I was happy it was beaten, because I loved it the entire time. There was never a point where I was like, oh, this boss is getting boring, or oh, I just want to skip phase 2 to get to 3. Because of the fact that both are very different, it made both incredibly fun every attempt. And unlike any other boss that you've done so far, where Ys almost stoically despises them and is happy to see them go, you and Yi are left with this almost somber feeling as she goes. She was someone who was a victim just as much as anyone else, and yet you had to kill her to free her. And while yes, she asked you to do it, you also don't want to kill someone kind, and at least getting to see her go and be free from her eternal agony is both somber and beautiful in a way. And you see a flashback after this that shows something almost similar happened to Yi, where an experiment of his goes wrong. Luckily, it actually hurts him instead of his sister, but it shows the parallel of you both. You also made mistakes, and that could have been her that was killed. And then wouldn't he have been in the exact same state as Lady Ethereal, where he was just forced to live on with his mistakes constantly weighing him down mentally? And you are Lady Ethereal in a way as a character. You're both scientists, both genius, but both have made mistakes that you can never lose. The hole in Yi's chest will always be there, and the hole in Lady Ethereal's head is always there, even if you don't see it until the final phase. Hey, sorry for not making a video in a really long time, but to be honest, it was because I haven't had a PC that was able to make a video for a while, and then when I finally set it up, I didn't have any videos I really wanted to make at the moment. And that's why with this one, while it's more of a small video, I just really wanted to talk about this boss I really loved. And sure, I could wait until I beat the game, because I know there's bosses that I've heard of are even better or as good as her later in the game. I was kind of like, I want to make this video now because I want to make it. And I don't want to lose motivation when I'm motivated to make it right now. So I did it, and I hope you did enjoy. I know it's very different from my other videos, but I just wanted to talk about this boss, you know? That's really it. Thanks for watching.